The WEC has completed round 3 of this year's season, with the event taking place at Spa-Francorchamps, and the legendary Belgian circuit played host to yet another entertaining endurance race. The race featured all sorts of action, and in this video, I'll recap it all in this race review of the 2024 edition of the 6 Hours of Spa. 37 cars would take to the track across the two categories of Hypercar and LMGT3 for the event, which is the final race before the iconic 24 Hours of Le Mans. Now, before I talk about the race itself, it's crucial that I talk about two things that happened during qualifying. One of these factors was during the hyperpole session for LMGT3, when a major crash happened at the top of Raidillon for the number 92 Manthey Pure Racing Porsche. This was a huge crash for the championship-leading LMGT3 Porsche, and thankfully driver Alex Malikin was okay and able to climb out of the car. But it is imperative that I mention this considering where this 92 Porsche was at the end of this race. The other factor I wanted to mention was that the number 50 Ferrari was actually the car that qualified on the overall pole. However, the entry was found to be underweight and disqualified from pole position, meaning that the 50 Ferrari would start at the very back of the hypercar field. Therefore, starting on pole position in the race would be Frederick Makovicki's number 5 Porsche Penske entry. This car would start on pole for the second time this season, after Matt Campbell took pole in Qatar. At the start, Makovicki would lead the field away in the number 5 Porsche, and continue to lead in the entry heading out of turn 1. The number 99 Proton Porsche, driven by Julian Andlauer, would look to challenge the number 2 Cadillac, but eventually would maintain third. Especially during the first few minutes, the hypercar class field would show off some incredible on-track racing, and the duels would continue throughout the rest of the race. And while all the fierce competition was happening in hypercar, over in LMGT3, it was Sarah Bovi's number 85 Lamborghini that was leading the field. The Iron Dames entry started on pole, and the Belgian racer was already starting to pull a gap to the second place entry. The Lamborghini LMGT3 entries would actually end up having a very strong race, which was a good turnaround considering what happened to them in Imola. Back up in the hypercar category, the racing continued, but it was clear that Porsche had a very strong race car. The number 5 Porsche Penske continued to lead this race, but it wasn't just the factory 963s performing well. The customer entries were starting to challenge not just for the podium positions, but also the win. At this point in the race, we were seeing a very strong showing from a certain French racer, that driver being Julian Andlauer, the pilot of the number 99 Proton competition Porsche. In just his 4th race in 963 machinery, Andlauer was proving that he had the ability to take the 99 Proton to the front of the field. He soon overtook the number 2 Cadillac at Eau Rouge, and then started chasing down Frederick Makovicki in the number 5 Porsche Penske for the race lead. Meanwhile, there wasn't good news for Toyota Gazoo Racing. Unfortunately, the number 8 Toyota was hit with a stop-and-go penalty for a technical infringement. This sent the entry towards the very back of the hypercar field. Ultimately, the Toyota GR010 did not have the pace to take overall victory, although Toyota was playing the long game on strategy, and hopefully, with the experience that this team had during the race, this would benefit them with a solid points position. As the race progressed, Julian Andlauer pulled off yet another phenomenal overtake by splitting the traffic at the bus stop chicane and taking the lead from Frederick Makovicki in the number 5 Porsche Penske. Andlauer had now put the number 99 Proton in the race lead of the 6 Hours of Spa, and as the race progressed, the Proton entry would continue to extend the gap off the second place car. The number 99 Proton Porsche was not the only entry in hypercar making its way towards the front of the field. The Ferrari 499Ps were doing the same. The number 51 car soon overtook the number 5 Porsche for second position, and the sister factory entry was also making its way through the field after starting at the back of the grid. Our first big crash of the day happened when the number 20 BMW hypercar hit the number 38 Hertz Team Jota entry, sending the Porsche 963 into the LMGT3 BMW from WRT. Unfortunately, this incident would result in the retirement for both the number 38 Porsche and the number 46 BMW. Unfortunately, both cars sustained too much damage to continue on in the race. This was especially bad news for Valentino Rossi fans, as the Italian driver, who was one of the racers for the 46 car, would not continue into the rest of the event. Because of this incident, the safety car was deployed, and during this period, there was drama for the number 99 Proton Porsche, which was leading the overall event. The reason for this dramatic moment was because, of all things, the driver's side door wouldn't close on the Porsche 963. The driver, Neil Johnny, who had taken over from Julian Andlauer during a pit sequence, was trying his hardest to close that door on the Porsche for multiple minutes. Thankfully, the Swiss driver was able to close the door and keep it shut, but it was a very intense couple of minutes, considering we didn't know if this issue would cause the 99 Proton to lose the lead of the race. With the safety car ending and the race progressing, there was a good battle happening for the race lead in LMGT3. This battle was between the number 59 McLaren and the number 85 Lamborghini. Unfortunately for Iron Dames, the safety car period removed the gap that Sarah Bovey had built up beforehand, and now the 59 McLaren had got ahead of the 85 car. But thankfully Iron Dames had Rahel Frey behind the wheel, and herself and Nicolas Costa gave us some great racing. The McLaren 720S GT3s were finding some very strong pace, as shown with the 59 car taking the race lead, and so were the Lamborghinis. The Iron Lynx car was also up there in a position to take the race lead. But unfortunately for Lamborghini as a whole, it wasn't turning out to be a good day in the hypercar class. Unfortunately, the SC63 would retire from the race with a suspension issue. In fact, this would be the only retirement in hypercar when it came down to a car-related issue and not a crash or a mistake out on track. The suspension issue would put the number 63 hypercar into the garage, and unfortunately, it wouldn't return out on track. Hopefully, Lamborghini bounces back at the 24 Hours of Le Mans when they have two SC63s competing in that event. Later on, there was an incident, this time involving the number 5 Porsche Penske. Michael Christensen was at the wheel of the pole-sitting car, when unfortunately the Danish driver made a mistake at the Blanchimont corner, resulting in the Porsche getting damaged and unable to continue on with the race. This of course was a difficult circumstance for the number 5 Porsche, but Porsche Penske Motorsport still had one more entry in this race to achieve a good result, and that was the number 6 entry. I'll talk about that result for the number 6 car a little bit later on. Back up in the front in the hypercar category, Ferrari was on fire at this point. The number 51 car took the lead from the number 99 Proton, and the number 50 Ferrari, which mind you started at the back of the grid, was now in second position. It was a Ferrari 1-2 at Circuit des Spa-Francorchamps. However, things were about to drastically change for not just Ferrari, but the whole grid itself, as a massive crash happened on the Kemmel Straight. Earl Bamber in the number 2 Cadillac was trying to maneuver around the 31 BMW to overtake the Proton Porsche for third. Unfortunately though, they made contact and the number 2 Cadillac went airborne in a horrific accident, which sent the number 2 Cadillac across the entire track. Thankfully, Earl Bamber was okay from the incident, and so was the BMW driver of the 31 car. What this did though was change the outcome of the race for multiple entries across both classes. Just before this crash happened, Hertz Team Jota called in the number 12 Porsche for a mandatory pit stop, but little did they know that this regular pit stop would actually result in them earning the race lead later on. You see, because of this major incident, the red flag was called out on track and the race was temporarily neutralized. But because of the rules, the WEC does not allow entries to refuel under red flag. Because of this, since they were low on fuel, once the race would resume, the hypercar entries and LMGT3 entries that didn't pit beforehand would need to come into the pit lane to refuel, where the other entries, such as the number 12 Porsche, would cycle to the front. Speaking of when it resumed, it was about 2 hours delay because of the cleanup on the Kemmel Straight. Thankfully though, the organizers would add on more time for more racing. And funny enough, this wouldn't really be a 6-hour endurance race, but more like an 8-hour endurance race. As predicted beforehand, once the racing resumed, the Ferraris, the Toyotas, the Proton Porsche, and so on all came into the pit lane to refuel, where the number 12 Hertz Team Jota Porsche and number 6 Porsche cycled to the front with around a minute gap to the rest of the hypercar field. The fact is, those two Porsches got very lucky to pit before the red flag, and now the battle for the race win was between those two cars. With just over an hour remaining, Hertz Team Jota's only opposition to secure the race win came from the number 6 Porsche Penske. Behind in the number 6 Porsche was Kevin Estre, and he was looking to secure Porsche Penske Motorsport's second win of the season in 2024. However, it wasn't meant to be. Instead, British driver Callum Ilott extended the gap in the number 12 Porsche to Kevin Estre in the 6 car, and by the end of the race, the gap was around 14 seconds. The race results in Hypercar were pretty much decided, but it wasn't in LMGT3. In the final few minutes, it was sure to be the number 60 Iron Lynx Lamborghini that would take the win. However, it had to do a quick splash of fuel in order to finish the race. This meant that it would lose the race win on the final lap of the race. Losing the win like this, of course, would be devastating. But if they were to achieve a good result in LMGT3, Iron Lynx would need to stop for fuel. Taking over the lead in LMGT3 would be the 2 Porsches, the number 92 car ahead of the 91. Ultimately, Porsche would win in LMGT3, but the question was, which one? Remember, the 92 Porsche was the same car that had that massive wreck in qualifying, so to see it in the race lead on the final lap was already pretty spectacular. But ultimately, it would not be the 92 Porsche that would take the win. The number 91 Manthey EMA Porsche would make the move on the Kemmel Straight and stay in the lead until the flag. In the hypercar class, it would be Hertz Team Jota that would take their first overall victory in the WEC. The number 12 Porsche 963, driven by Will Stevens and Callum Ilott, would cross the line to secure a historic victory. It would be a Porsche 1-2 in the hypercar category, with the number 6 Porsche Penske entry continuing their podium streak in second, with the number 50 Ferrari securing third. Remember, this car started at the very back of the field in hypercar, so this was a pretty impressive achievement. It would also be a Porsche 1-2 in LMGT3, with the number 91 Manthey EMA Porsche continuing to hold off the number 92. The number 60 Iron Lynx Lamborghini would actually recover to finish in third, so they would still achieve a good result, despite having that last lap pit. Coming out of the race at Spa-Francorchamps, the number 6 Porsche Penske continues to lead the Hypercar Championship, with 74 points. It also has a healthy gap of 22 points to the second place car. That second place car is the number 12 Hertz Team Jota Porsche after their achievement here at Spa. The number 7 Toyota is now in third, with the number 5 Porsche Penske in fourth. The number 50 Ferrari from AF Corsa rounds off the top 5. In LMGT3, the top 5 remain the same coming out of Spa. The number 92 Manthey Pure Racing Porsche is in first, followed by the number 31 Team WRT BMW, the 27 Heart of Racing Aston Martin, followed by the 46 Team WRT BMW and the 777 D-Station Aston Martin. It's also worth pointing out that the number 91 Manthey EMA Porsche has now moved into 6th after a good result at the Circuit des Spa-Francorchamps. So with that said, that completes my race review for the 2024 edition of the 6 Hours of Spa, which was more like an 8-hour endurance race. What did you think about the WEC's latest trip to the legendary Spa-Francorchamps circuit? And are you happy to see Hertz Team Jota finally get that first overall victory in the championship? Well, as always, let me know all your thoughts down in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, I suggest subscribing. The reason why is because I make endurance racing content mainly on WEC and IMSA every week. And if you want to watch more videos, there's options on your screen. But for now, that's it from me. I'll see you in the next one.